All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Nice looking Friday. We've been doing this show, this talk show. Robin and I have been doing this show for a long time. This particular one here on WOCA, we've been doing over 10 years. And then we had another show. Oh, there you go. Some more books here. And what I'm trying to get at here is we have had guests who are authors forever. I mean, I think since day one we had authors. And at one point along, now the authors normally came from like HarperCollins or Simon & Schuster or any of the big name publishers. And then I guess maybe in the late 80s or so, that's how far back we go, by the way, with this thing. We had a few people come in and say, you know, I hear you talking to authors. Would you be interested in speaking to me? I wrote a book. Really? And you live here? Okay, well, that was impressive to us. And of course, turned out that they were very, very good as well. Not only did we find one, we found many local authors who are very, very talented. And it's not news to us now because we've known about this for a long time, but it's always amazing when we discover somebody new. And one of the things that has come up a lot is with wannabe authors or people who've got the manuscript but they've never had it published, or they've got the manuscript and they know they need some honed skills or some editor advice or something like that, and then they ask us. We say, you know, we just talked to these authors, we don't know the answers. Well, guess what? We've got somebody in the studio today who might know all of those answers. She not only has written some historical fictional novels of herself, and she's going to correct everything I've got wrong as soon as we get to her. But she also has some books that'll help you learn to be a better writer. Maity Schrecengost, and she helped me understand how to pronounce her name just a little bit ago, is a retired teacher, an educational consultant, a researcher, and an award-winning author. Her books are, let me go through these real quickly, Tasso of Tarpon Springs, High Above the Hippodrome. I remember this one from last year. Were you on last year?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I wasn't.
I guess we talked about it but didn't have you in here. High Above the Hippodrome. Oh, the other version. Panther Girl. And then the two books that we have, at least in front of me, to help writers. Voice Wizardry, 36 Discovery Activities to Develop Personal Writing Voice. And we've heard that term writing voice before, so I want to ask about that. And then Writing Wizardry, 70 mini lessons to teach elaborative writing skills. And Maity is going to be at the 2013 Book Feast. It's a wonderful event. I don't know if amazing is the right adjective there, but it's just a very great event because it showcases our authors from right here in Ocala and Marion County, and we've got a lot of talented authors. Lee Schwartz is responsible primarily for introducing us to these authors, and let me say less now and go to Maity Schrecengost, who will say more. She's in the studio, so it's an honor to have her in the studio, and my goodness, what a list of credentials you have. Good morning, Maity.
Good morning, Larry.
I like that name, by the way, Maity. Is that a nickname?
Yes, it is. It's short for Maitland.
Maitland.
My given name is Sarah Maitland.
Wow.
And then add Schrecengost onto it. You cannot get that on a driver's license.
But you got that from your husband sitting behind you, right?
Yes. Had I known I was going to be a published author, I might have had to reconsider, considering his last name.
Oh, wow. Have you ever considered using a pen name?
No, I haven't.
No, okay. Well, good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
So what is a writing voice? What does that mean, actually?
The writing voice is many writers, when they first begin to write, they feel rather stilted because they're writing more for themselves than they're writing for their audience.
Okay.
And so they haven't found that unique voice that is theirs, that stamps the writing as their writing. I'm thinking of several authors that, for instance, if you read anything by William Shakespeare, even if you didn't know who wrote it, you would recognize his voice.
Okay, that's a good example.
You would recognize the stamp of his personality, his interests, his way of turning a phrase. And so Voice Wizardry is a series of exercises that teachers can use with their students to help them find their own personal writing voice.
Oh gosh, I would love to know what's in the book. I'll have to look at it. So, you know, the way I can relate to this is with music. Robin and I not only perform, but we also write.
Oh.
Early on in writing music, if you listen to it now, I don't know that I noticed it at the time, I can clearly hear the musical influences. So I wasn't writing Larry. I was writing, whoever I was influenced by.
That's right.
So can you read a new author and say, oh, I can see who your influences are, or sometimes at least? Like somebody who's a big fan of, let's say, Stephen King, for lack of a better name to pick out. But, I mean, can you say, oh, you must be a fan of Stephen King. You're writing just like him.
I have had that. I've had the privilege of editing some new writers' books, and I have seen this happen. People who are real fans of, say, John Grisham or Larry, they will almost instinctively adapt and adopt that writing style. And that's okay, but it's not their style. It's not uniquely them. We have a friend, a well-known author, Robert Newton Peck, who lives in Longwood. I've had the privilege of working with Rob. He was the one who really got me going and writing. When I used his book, Fiction is Folks, I really learned more about how to write from that, and it eventually evolved that I became had the privilege of editing one of his more recent books. But you can pick up any of Rob's books and you say,
and it's
that's
him.
Rob. That's Rob.
Isn't that the problem? That's mentioning Stephen King again. When he tried to write under Richard Bachman, that pen name, people said, oh, this was Stephen King.
Yeah.
So and that's amazing to me that you can even tell that. So
it is, and the wonderful thing is, I've done a lot of work with helping teachers help students. FCAT and the FCAT writing became a very big thing, and helping teachers learn ways to help children not be a Polly parrot of something that they've heard, but hey, this is me. This is me on this page.
So can I presume, from the fact that you wrote a book about this, that it's possible to actually break away from that and be your own voice without having written 12 novels, and you finally start to have a voice of your own? In other words, it sounds like it's not inevitable that you have to write a lot in order to break free of that stigma of having the copycat writing style.
Absolutely. Right now, I have the privilege of working with a brand new writer. He has never written anything.
Really?
Nothing. But he has an idea, and he has a passion, and passion's the first key.
Okay.
To have a passion for your subject. So just yesterday, in fact, he came over and we spent about 3 hours just going through early chapters of his book. And at first it was very and then suddenly his voice just popped out.
Wow.
And I would point it out to him and say, look, here you are. This is where the energy begins. This is where I hear you. This is where you come in on the scene. And when he began to recognize that, then as we continued to work, he'd say, oh, I see. Now that's me. And it's just a very exciting thing. It's a wonderful and exciting thing.
So when you expressed that to him, did he go back and rewrite the first section?
I sent him home with the introduction and the first 2 chapters, and he is just ready to tear into it. And yes, he'll go back and rework. I explained it to him as I like to explain to any writer, young or old. It's like having a lump of clay. You don't just spill it out on the page. You mold and tweak and form until it begins to take that unique, wonderful, exciting form that you want to give your reader.
And this is wonderful about you. This has got to be one of your highest attributes, because you are a writer yourself. You're an award-winning author. You do all this incredible stuff on your own, yet you're not afraid to help somebody else, and you don't feel threatened by them, by the potential of their success.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, I came into writing mainly to help other writers learn to write.
But that is the spirit of a teacher, isn't it? That ego thing that gets in the way of so many of us, especially in this business, is absolutely something that's going to foil somebody who wants to be a teacher, because your whole mission is to make somebody better than you.
That's right.
That's kind of cool. By the way, I saw the
and it's
teacher in you come out. When
Oh.
Robin started to speak, you said, Robin? You went to her like a kid in the class. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, Timmy, it's your turn now.
Raise your hand.
What did you
You may speak.
Oh, that's too funny. Did you, as let's see, part of your credentials, make sure I got this, researcher. So do some of the books that are not the educational books, but rather the enjoyable reading books, I guess you would say. I don't know if they're novels or history, but is that what takes place as we read these books? We get to learn something about history, or?
Absolutely. I strive to keep all the historical background as accurate as I possibly can. And that means lots and lots and lots and lots of research. And then the more creative aspect comes in when I weave those facts into a fictional account.
And do you have a favorite era of history that you like to dwell in your writing?
I basically did this for a very practical reason. I taught fourth grade, and in fourth graders learn Florida history. And there was really only one really popular good novel, and that was Strawberry Girl. And I wanted to have some Florida historical fiction books for the kids in my classroom.
Wow, so how cool was it for the kids to say, ooh, my teacher wrote a book?
Oh, it's been marvelous. It's just been marvelous, and they get so excited. There was a little girl in my classroom named Jenna, and when it was just about time for Panther Girl to come out, I went into the classroom one day and I thought, oh my word, Jenna looks just like Mariah in the book.
Wow.
And I said, Jenna, if I had a little costume made for you, would you go to book signings with me?
Oh, wow.
She was very shy.
Oh, my
but
goodness.
She said, yes. So I had the costume made.
Oh, wow.
And interestingly enough, her mother was friends of the sheriff in Bradenton.
Mm-hmm.
We lived in Bradenton at the time, who happened to have a pet panther.
Wow.
And
Oh, my goodness.
he would bring Corky to the book signings. I could have sold Corky a million times, but it was just a wonderful thing. And so yes, the children get really excited. The day that the publisher sent me the cover for this book, for Panther Girl, the children all gathered around the computer and they said, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. So yes,
Oh, wow.
sharing
Oh,
in
wow.
their excitement is part of my excitement.
So that must have been the days when computers were relatively new, or the internet was anyway. Maybe the way they said "here it comes," it sounds like, because in the old days the pictures used to scroll slowly onto the
Yes.
screen. So it was that. So how far back does Panther? Tell us. Let's go through these one at a time, if we could, real quickly. What's the story of Panther Girl? What's in there?
Panther Girl was set in 1844 Florida, just after the Second Seminole Indian War.
Oh, wow.
And the idea for this story actually came while I was doing research for Tasso of Tarpon Springs. I was going through the paper files
Wow.
in Tarpon Springs, and I came across this article, a newspaper article about a man named P.K. Bailey, who lived in Valdosta, Georgia, was hired by the president to come down to Florida and do some surveying work. On the
Wow.
way, now this is the legend.
Oh, okay.
The legend is
Yes.
that he came across a Seminole Indian boy who was suffering from malaria, saved his life, and I said, there's the story. That story has to be written. So that's where this came from. So my little Mariah is the daughter of a Scottish surveyor, and the story, the crux of the story is the friendship that she developed with a Seminole Indian boy
Oh, wow.
at a time
Do you know,
Gosh.
last year, Robin and I were kind of exploring Florida's parks. We went to the Dade Battlefield State Park
Yes.
and learned there what happened there. Never knew that story, by the way. Never knew about that.
Wonderful story.
Obviously, you know it. But in hearing that, And learning also that there was a trail that somehow led all the way to Fort King here down here in Ocala.
Right here.
So you try to imagine, well, God, what was that like? What was it like? So that's what you've done for us. We can read the book, and I know this isn't exactly that story, but that seems like it touches on it. Am I right?
Yes, and I try very much to put my readers in the time and the place and let them experience vicariously what it would have been like to live in Florida in 1842, 1844.
You have another book called High Above the Hippodrome. There are two of them. Are they the same book, just different versions of it?
Yes.
Okay.
The one in your left hand was one that I self-published. It's a story of on the road in 1927 with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus when they moved their winter home to Sarasota.
Okay.
You see, when I was little, I knew I was going to be a bareback rider in a circus.
Oh, wow.
I have always loved the circus. And the first time I went to the Circus Museum in Sarasota, I knew that someday I would write a book about the circus. And so I self-published that one. And then, to my delight, the Florida Historical Society picked it up. And the second version that you have is after they took it over, and they are now publishing it.
Is that the Hippodrome that we know in Gainesville? Is that
no?
No, okay.
No, the Hippodrome is actually the ring, that goes all around the outer edge.
And that's what they're all called?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those things you learn from research.
Yeah, wow.
If you notice in the back of the book, the fun part for me is a glossary of circus terms. And I learned all kinds of fabulous things. For instance, the pink lemonade. Do you know why the lemonade was pink?
No.
It's because they ran out of pink lemonade, and they took a circus performer's red tights.
Oh!
and put it into the lemonade?
That was the origin of pink lemonade.
Wow.
Are we sure about this? I love this story.
It seems to be the story.
Well, there was an Irish song during St. Patrick's Day. Who put the overalls in Mrs. Murphy's chowder?
Well,
it sounds like that.
Sounds like the same thing, doesn't it?
All right, here's another one. Now, another book is called Tasso of Tarpon Springs. Tell us what's in this book.
That was my first historical fiction, and there's a story behind every story, When my husband's parents retired, they came to Florida. And we came down during a spring break from Pennsylvania to spend time with them. And Tom's father got up one morning and said, "Okay, everybody in the car, we're going to Tarpon Springs." So off we went. The minute we drove into that town, I was enchanted. I fell in love. And my eyes were this big, and all I could see, the sponges, the music, the sounds. I just loved it. And Tom's dad said, "Okay, those are the sponge docks. Those are the sponges all up and down this street. There are little stores you could go in, but in typical best snowbird fashion." He said, "But we have to hurry if we're going to be at the restaurant by 4.
Oh, gee.
I was too old to lay down and kick my heels and scream and cry and say, "I'm not leaving."
Yeah.
So when we moved to Florida, our first trip, a little side trip, was to Tarpon Springs. I fell in love all over again with the people, the culture, and the more I learned, I thought, there's a story here. I have to write this story. And so this was the story of a little boy, a Greek boy, who stowed away in 1905 to come to America to be part of the sponge industry.
Oh, wow.
Your historical novels look like they could also be for young readers.
They
as
are
well
mostly
as adults.
No, they're really mostly for young readers. But I've had many adults say, "What do you mean this book's for kids? I loved it." And I think it's because a good story is timeless. And the history is for everyone. So yeah.
Well, you're very vibrant in telling us about the stories, and I'm sure once the stories are being read, the reader can feel that vibrancy as well and feel like they're really there.
Well, these books are used quite extensively in Florida classrooms throughout Florida. I just received a letter from a teacher in WOCA, and she said that her children almost fall apart.
That's awesome.
When she says, we can't read anymore. We have to do math now.
Oh.
And so they said, please ask her if we could write to her. So I'm looking forward to getting the letters.
My goodness,
and
that is
doing
awesome.
A school visit.
That is really, I love that, because you're connecting in a real way. You know, what you took a long, long time to do, to sit behind your computer, your word processor, your typewriter, whatever it is you used, to make this creation called a book, is just sitting on a shelf unless you hear things like that. I mean, you hear.
Well, it's wonderful because I love doing the school visits and I love interacting with the children.
It comes alive.
And when I was teaching, I was able to say, now look, this is how I did it in this book. Now this is how you do it. You know, I could use it as a teaching tool.
By the way, I have a Tarpon Springs story for you.
Oh, wonderful.
Are you ready? I already told you that we are in the music business outside of here. We go to the studio in Tampa. This was in the 70s, okay? And we're waiting for the bass player to come back. And the guy who runs the studio looks at his watch and he says, well, the boat was probably late. And what does he do? Well, what he does for his real job, I guess, was he put sponges under the water. I said, you mean he pulls them from the water? He goes, no, he puts them down there, and then somebody else goes down and gets them for the tourists. So I said, you're kidding. You mean those tourists think they're getting... Isn't that funny? So it goes,
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful story.
You are going to be at the 2013 Book Feast, and I'm sure our listeners are going to be stopping by and just not moving for a while as they are enthralled by what you have to tell them and just kind of your personality. By the way, I envy your relationship. Tom has been looking at you with such pride the whole time. It's almost like when we have a child in here and the parent is in the back. So,
well, you know, my husband's very much part of the process in two very, very real ways. Writers hear what they write inside their own head, but they don't always hear what it really, really sounds like. So everything that I have written, particularly the historical fiction, I'll give the chapter to my husband and say, read it to me. And when he reads it aloud, then I'll go, stop, right there,
wow.
mark it, because I realize, no, that's not how I heard it in my head. And so I know that I have to go back, and that comes back to the voice again, that there was something missing there. I also do not tend to be wonderfully logical. My husband has a science background, and he's very logical. So he will read.
She made a face, by the way, Tom, when she said that.
and he will say, "Honey,
it's not logical."
That's not logical.
But that's good. Isn't that good? See, when you have these writers' groups, we hear this all the time. That the bitter pill, the hard pill, maybe is a better word to swallow, is the one where you're getting a critique that is genuine, and it really makes you a better writer, but you hate hearing it. It's like, oh, yeah, you're right. I should change that or something.
And if you do have that mentality, you'd better stay out of a critique group.
Yeah.
Because a real critique group is going to help you become a better writer. And you've got to go in there ready to take it.
And when you had said that your husband reads the chapters back to you, these books are ideal for the young reader to read aloud to their younger siblings, thereby sharing the adventure with the siblings and getting them interested in reading.
Absolutely. And I was really astonished one year. One of my fellow teachers said, well, I've been reading Panther Girl to my first graders. And I said, what? To your first graders? I said, isn't that a little... Oh, no, she said, they hang on every word. I mean, that's what I mean, that the books are timeless.
We are out of time, but I wanted the listeners to know that they can see you on April 13th, right? Do I have the date right? April 13th at the Marion County Public Library headquarters at the 2013 Book Feast. I have so many more things I wanted to talk to you about, but we just ran out of time. Thank you for coming in. Let me just re-mention Maity.
Maity.
Maity
Mm-hmm.
Schrecengost, our
Good.
guest. Tom Schrecengost sitting in the back, looking as proud as a parent, but he's a husband. Thank you both for coming in this morning. Loved listening to what you had to say, and I don't think we covered half of what we wanted to talk about. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
And come back. You're welcome to come back. You live here, right? You live in Ocala?
We live in Summerfield.
And somewhat's close enough. Yeah.
That's right. And I want your listeners to know that I will really, really look forward to chatting with them.
And
on
they'll
the
be there.
13th.
They'll be there.
All
We'll be there
right.
too. We'll be there at the end of it.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, we've got something else earlier in the day that we've got to do, but we'll be by with our video camera and make a little podcast out of it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. All right, we've got to make room now for John Sotomayor. Ocala Magazine Radio is up next.
You're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
Hi, this is John Sotomayor, Executive Editor of Ocala Magazine, here to tell you that